Hi, this is Jacob with MarketingPlayBook.co, and today we're going to be covering optimization on GDN. And optimization has to be one of my favorite things to do because that's where you ultimately make your money. So right now I'm in my AdWords campaign. I am in an ad group, and here are my text ads. Now these ads are in German. I'm using this ad because I'm no longer live in this particular type of campaign. So it's a good one to go ahead and out, and it has quite a bit of campaign data in here to share with everyone, which should significantly help some people out. Now by default you might have to go in under columns, which we're actually going to cover in the next video. But here are the ad groups that I have in here, and you're going to see that it looks like I went ahead and paused this one. Generally when I set up an ad group, I'll have multiple ads in there. So if I'm setting up an ad group for image ads, I'm just going to have image ads in there. I'm not going to mix in text ads with image ads. And some people do that, and I think it's a mistake because each ad performs differently. And even if that text ad shows up on, let's say, YouTube, and the image ad shows up on YouTube, they both can perform differently. So it's important to go ahead and segment those out. I also recommend having more than one ad copy for text ads inside your ad group. So one ad might read one way while another ad's going to read a different way. And it's important to do that because one ad might get significantly higher click-through rate. And in this particular instance, it actually looks like I have the same ad copy here for whatever reason. It's quite possible that I changed it out at a later date. I do not recall because it's old ad copy and it's from too long ago. But if we look here, we're going to see right here, here's my click-through rate of 0.63%, where this one had 0.23%. And granted, this is significantly less volume-wise, but if this, let's say, all things being equal, this had 100 clicks and this had 100 clicks, and this was giving me a higher click-through rate than this ad, in most cases, you're going to find that this ad is actually going to be the profitable ad. Not every time, but it can be more profitable because AdWords is going to show that ad more than this other ad copy because it makes them more money because more people click on the ad. And there's three things to keep in mind at all times here. And one is AdWords, being Google, it cares more about the customer. You're not the customer. You're an advertiser. You're a partner with AdWords. They care about the people who are viewing their ads. They care about people who are clicking on the ads. So it's the end user that they're there to protect and that they're there to care about, because that's where their money really comes from, is it comes from them. And so that's the first thing to think about. The second thing to think about is the actual partner. So these ads is called AdSense when it shows up on somebody else's site, or it could be brokered through numerous different display networks. But in that aspect, they want and they will show the ad that makes the most money for them and the ad that makes the most money for that particular website. So if this ad was shown 100 times and at 0.23% click-through rate, but this other ad was shown 100 times with a 6.3% click-through rate, that's 3 times higher. So they're getting 3 times the clicks, and chances are that's going to make them more money, and that's going to make the advertiser more money. So therefore, this ad's going to show more than the other ad. Now, if this one, even if it was showing less, but it had more conversions, clearly you go with conversions over click-through rate. And that's pretty much all I'll say about that. And in another video after optimization, we're going to go through how quality score is determined, and you're going to learn a lot more about the reasoning of having multiple ads in there and how much more it can benefit you. So continuing with optimization, you go with the ad that's making you the most money. Next up, we're going to take a quick look and a quick detour at the Dimensions tab just because we haven't talked about it much. Now, in AdWords search campaigns, you're going to be in there quite a bit under the Dimensions tab. At least you should be. If you watched our training videos, you know how important going into the Dimensions tab is, because that's where you can actually see the search terms that are showing up. Well, in the AdWords display, you do not have that type of data. So you are able, however, you don't have the exact search term. It's just not going to happen. A couple things you do have is the geographic data. So if I go into this campaign, you're going to see, I'm going to sort by clicks. And this is a really good campaign to show you too as well, because in here If you recall from an earlier video that we did here on GDN, we talked about under the settings tab just having it in that one location only. Well, this is a software program, it's available worldwide. I was just targeting Germany, but I left it open so it wasn't just people in that search location, it was people worldwide. So basically anybody who was interested in this product who had a German web browser was shown my ad. So if we look here, here's Turkey. I've had 91 clicks at $15.55. At an average CPC equals out to 17 cents. Now for Germany, my average CPC was 20 cents. So it goes to reason that if I actually ended up having conversions here in Turkey, I could go ahead and start a new campaign for that, because if I had Turkey in its own ad group, or I'm sorry, in its own campaign, then I'm most likely going to pay a lower cost per click than just having it in one campaign together. And that's because traffic in Turkey is generally a lot cheaper than traffic in Germany. But because I'm mixing everything together, I'm actually paying a premium for that type of traffic. Now let's say I am targeting worldwide, or I'm targeting just in the United States. And let's pretend all these are states right here. And we're having all this data come in, and we'll even out the data, and we'll just say that the first 4 were 1,000 clicks. All right? And then all these had some conversions, but this one in particular, we'll pretend Turkey's a state here in the United States. And I was targeting the United States. Let's say I spent $50 here in this one state, and my average earnings is only $5. Well, I spent 10 times more than what I'd make on a sale. So even though I'm targeting the United States, what I can do is I can go under settings, and I can go under, let's go to the campaign settings. I can go under locations, and from there is what I could do is I could actually exclude out locations. So if I hit targeting, I can go in under advanced search, and right here I can go ahead and enter in a location, an address, or radius, and exclude particular place. So I'm not actually targeting Turkey anymore in that campaign. It is a dead campaign, but let's say this is all part of the United States and Turkey was in there. I could go ahead and just up here, I could type in Turkey, and then it'll show up here, and I can just exclude that out. So you can exclude out a state if you want, and that's really helpful, especially let's say in the insurance industry or product industry where your product's legal in the vast majority of states, but for whatever reason, Colorado and Alabama, both those states don't like certain products. So you can go ahead and target the United States, but just exclude those regions. Or based upon your data over here, you can go ahead and just go in and exclude the data out, or target regions out if need be. Now I am looking at this data based upon the ad group level. Generally, most people look at it based upon the campaign level. Ultimately, it just depends how much spend you have going on. And I wouldn't be in any big rush at all to exclude out geographic data based upon minimal sales results here. You generally need significant data. So you're not going to spend a lot of time in this type of tab, but once you do start gaining a lot of data, or your campaigns has ran for several months, it's a good idea to jump in here just to see where you might be bleeding some of your budget out. So next up, we're going to look at day of the week, and this is a little bit more relevant. So you don't need as much data to realize if, hey, some particular days I'm spending way too much money and my cost for conversions is way off. So some companies do really well on a Monday. Other companies do horrible on a Monday, and for whatever reason it is, you can go in and look here, and you might end up deciding after a significant amount of data, I'm going to use that term again, after a significant amount of data, you might decide that, you know what, for whatever reason, on Saturday and Sunday, my sales are just horrific, and that could be for several reasons. So you can go ahead and go in, and under the campaign settings, you can go ahead and change the time and just exclude those days. So you can run every day except for, let's say, Saturday and Sunday. And again, it's not something I do off the bat. This is only something I do after a significant amount of spend. And last up here is the hour of the day, and we'll go ahead and we're actually going to sort by the hour of the day. And again, I would not exclude certain hours of the day without a significant amount of spend. The only times I veer from that is if you're in a service-based industry. Generally, I recommend you start off your campaign advertising between the hours that you are open, and make sure that you have the right time zone set up inside your AdWords account. That's going to be under the settings tab, and make sure that the time zone is correct. That way when you change your times around, you're in the correct time zone and set up the correct times. Now if we look at this though, we can see, okay, here's midnight basically. I have 261 clicks. It cost me $53. I've had one conversion. I've actually had 2 conversions show up there. So based upon that data, this to me isn't enough information to go off of. I wouldn't exclude this even if I was negative, just because I don't have enough. Now, if I had 1,000 clicks over here, this was way too high. Let's say my target CPI was $30. Well, after this much spend, still that really isn't all that significant. It's only $200. If this was $1,000, then I might just bite the bullet and say, you know what, for whatever reason, this time zone isn't working for me, and my conversions are just too far off, then I'd exclude it. But I'm not a fan of day parting. It's something that, or I shouldn't say day parting, I should say time parting or hour parting, just because I see it bite people more than it helps. But it is something that especially if you're running larger budgets, it's something definitely to look at, and just to know when your sales are happening inside AdWords, and from there you can make the decision of whether you have to kill something off or not kill it off. Now we're going to get into more meat and the potatoes and what you actually be doing every day, and that's going to be inside the network display. So backing up here, I'm going to go under Ad Groups, and we're going to take a look here. I'm actually going to enter into another campaign real quick just to show you another set of data. So inside this is going to be a game that I was promoting for a period of time, no longer. But if we look at some of the data here, we're going to see, okay, this is an affinity group targeting role-playing games. I have affinity group of hardcore gamers. Here's a topic group, a massive multiplayer, and then there's another affinity group. And I'm sure that in here there's going to be some placements, so dedicated placements that I'm targeting, as well as numerous topics. And I know there's a keyword one in here. Maybe it's in another campaign group. But the point is you're going to have multiple ad groups that you're going to set up. And so there are going to be multiple different targeting groups in here. Like I was talking about in a previous video, you want to give yourself the best chance for success. And to do that, you really need multiple ad groups going, having slightly different targeting together. That way you can have the highest chance of success. So if I look at this, we're going to see that this one was targeting affinity role-playing games, and this one was doing hardcore gamers. And if I look at this, I was actually doing better, even paying a higher cost per click. My cost per converted click was actually lower. So even with a higher CPC, I was doing better with this targeting role-playing game fans than I was targeting hardcore gamers. Now, based upon that data, if I was on a limited budget, I could easily pause this one out and just keep the one that was making me more money. Even if I wasn't profitable, I could kind of try to zero in on this campaign and spend more money on this campaign to get more data. So I'll go ahead and I'll jump into this ad group, and we're going to go under the display network. Now in here, what we can do is we can look at numerous different factors. So I can go under the demographics data. And so looking at this, I do have, a bit of clicks coming in here. And I can see, based upon the data here, the number of conversions that we had. So my game, I've had, for male visitors, I've had far more male visitors. It's converting at 18% versus the unknowns, where I have about the same relative click-through rate. My CPC is going to be the same. My cost is significantly less just because of the volume, because there's less volume. But over here I can see that the conversion rate isn't as high. So because the conversion rate isn't as high, but everything else is equal, I can look at this. Well, here I'm making 65 cents is what it cost me per converted click. And here, this this group cost me 48 cents. So I can compare this on a campaign level. Right now I'm just looking at it through an ad group level and kind of see, well, is there something that I could have done there? Or can I create a new ad group just targeting males and seeing what I can do with that? Then we can also look over at age and see particular differences between ages. So if we look here, the vast majority of all the installs came in from unknown age. So AdWords doesn't know their age, and that's definitely has given me a better cost per click than the rest. If we look over at parental status, and we're going to see much of the same here, except for this, which parents is the cost per converted click is $1.05, which is higher, which I might just exclude that, but really I don't have enough data here. I only have 33 clicks, and there just isn't enough data here really for me to say, oh, I need to exclude this. Not yet anyways, but something that I can write down in my notes and kind of keep an eye on. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on view demographic combinations, which I covered in another video. So looking at the demographic combinations here, I can kind of get a feel for who my perfect target might be. So they definitely have a lot of volume for male, unknown age, and unknown parental status. That is where the vast majority of my impressions have come from, my vast majority of clicks have come from. And if I look at the cost per converted click, it's at 46 cents. However, if I look at females of an unknown age and unknown parental status, even though I do have a higher click-through rate here, the CPC is the same, the cost is lowered because I don't have as much volume, but that's only costing me 40 cents. So, if this was, let's say, $46 and this was $40, that's a pretty big difference, right? So I might want to go ahead and create a new campaign with just targeting I can basically copy this campaign or this ad group, and then I can just edit this out and just kind of try to focus on some of these groups that might be converting more for me. Now, I wouldn't cut this per se, especially if I'm making money off of it, which I am. Well, I should say which I was, but it's an option of, based upon the data, can I create a new ad group that might suck up more traffic for me? And the answer here is yes, I probably could. I could duplicate this and try to squeeze out a bit more traffic from it. Next up is the exact same thing with interest in remarketing, the exact same thing with topics. Now in here, you're going to notice that there's only one in here, all right? And that's because I already created multiple ad groups with different affinity audiences. So I already had this kind of segmented out into other ad groups, and that's a lot easier for me to do than lumping everything together in one ad group and then going in here and segmenting out. But I do it this way because I know I'm going to have some volume. If you're starting off and you're unsure, there's really nothing wrong with combining all of these together and then looking at the data and saying, okay, let me go ahead and kill off 3 of these and just keep the other 3. Or then make the decision of, all right, I'm going to create new ad groups just based upon these affinity groups, that the multitude that you included within that ad group. It's just a slightly different way of doing things is all. And same with the topics. You can go through there if you have multiple topics in there. Generally, I have every topic in its own ad group, however. Then we have the keywords. So here are the keywords that are being displayed as soon as they come up. I am not targeting keywords in this campaign. I forgot, sorry. So I'm just targeting interest-based groups in this particular ad group. If I had keywords, the keywords would show up here, and we'll go ahead and dive into a campaign that has some keywords. All right, so we're in here, and basically right here I'm saying remove awesome HP Internet Explorer. So you're going to see that this is a long tail keyword, and I do have a pretty good amount of volume for it. So there's nothing wrong with having long tail keywords in there. Some of them will get picked up, other ones won't get picked up. It's just the way it is. But going off of this data, we can see that I did go ahead and I paused this keyword, and then I paused this keyword, but these two I ended up keeping. And I'm guessing I paused this one because the cost per converted click was $54, whereas this cost per converted click was only $19. So I'm not a big fan of somebody creating keyword lists of thousands and thousands in there. I would rather you create a smaller list and have it far more focused on the products or services that you're currently promoting. It just makes things a lot easier, especially when we go over our placements, which we'll go in a second, and that'll kind of possibly make more sense to you. Because if you have, let's say, 100 different keywords, I'd probably break that out into maybe 2 to 3 different ad groups, because those placements, some keywords might be really profitable on a particular placement, but other keywords on that same placement are not profitable. And if you combine them all in one campaign, you might not necessarily be able to make that distinction, because you're unable to tie in what keyword was shown on a particular placement. So next up, we're going to go under the placements tab here, and I'll try to make that connection for you. So under placements, here we have where all the keywords triggered the ad copy, right? So whatever the keywords were before awesome HP triggered on all of these. Now, if I had, let's say, 100 different keywords in there, this could I could be profitable on this target with multiple keywords. However, because I'm bidding on such a large list of keywords, this might actually show as not being profitable. This, instead of being $18.86, which is tremendously profitable for me there, it could be a lot higher. And if that was the case, I might end up pausing this out thinking, oh, it's losing me money, but it was just a few of those select keywords. So, you got to make the decision. Are you going to be optimizing based upon keywords to start? Or are you going to be optimizing based on placements to start? And if you want to try to kind of do both, then you have to keep your keyword list smaller and tighter. So we'll go back over to placements again, and here we are over on the placements end. Now, basically is what I'll do here going through is I'll pause something if it's going to be usually 1.5 times to 3 times over my conversion value. So with this, I think I was profitable at around $30 or $32 with this particular offer in this particular country that I'm targeting. If we look here, you're going to see a number of these that I just cut off. I just said no, $42.71 on fixyourbrowser.com. It just didn't work for me. I had a significant amount of clicks, close to 300 clicks, and there just wasn't any conversion off of that. So you'll know your industry better than anybody else and kind of what you should be converting at. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how much money are you making, right? And I can't spend $42.71 on a whole lot of targets and not make money, especially when you have something that's working for you. If you have some targets that are working for you, great. Let's just throw as much money as you can at it, rather than spending money on other targets that aren't profitable, especially starting out. So I probably excluded this out. Maybe I excluded it out a little bit early on. We'll look at this one, computerbuild.de. This is actually a rock solid target, and I cut it out at $19.73. And I probably did that because I was making a lot more money over here, and that's just where I wanted my budget to go. But here you can simply go on and just highlight the keyword that you want. If this wasn't paused, I'd be able to just select the keyword, and it's not, oh, it is, and hit pause. But this is excluded from the ad group. And that's generally what I do, is I exclude by ad group unless it's a really bad target. So if I know that this particular target isn't going to convert in any of my ad groups, then I might go ahead and highlight it and go over here with the edit button and then say exclude from campaign. That means all ad groups within this campaign is going to be excluded from. If I were to just say exclude from ad group, it's only going to exclude it from this particular ad group, but in other ad groups it's going to show up. Now, like I said, you have to make that determination, and you can do it based upon relevancy. So if you go to that site and you say, you know what, this is just way unrelated to the product or the service that I'm marketing, then you can absolutely exclude it. Now, if you're doing keyword targeting, it should be related. If you're doing topic targeting, it should be related. If you're doing affinity targeting, then it's not going to be, because you're targeting the individual, not the sites that they're on. And that was covered previously under our targeting video. So basically is what you're going to do is come in here even every day just to take a look at where the placements are and how your keywords are doing. This is where you're going to spend most of your time, is between these two targets. And then you can go in, and what's great is you can possibly cherry pick some targets out here. So if I wanted to see, Browser Doctor is at $17.62 and Chips.de is at $18.86. Well, if I'm making $30 a sell, I can go ahead and I can duplicate this ad group, and then instead of doing, I can do the keyword targeting, but I can also layer it in with placement targeting. It might end up costing me a little bit more on a CPC type basis, but then I can exclude everything else in here, all other targets in here, and I'll only be targeting these keywords, the keywords that I want. So let's just say I chose just this one keyword right here because it seems to be pretty good and working for me. I can duplicate this ad group and then remove these keywords, keep that keyword, and then under the targeting, I would add in a layer of placements and just show on chip.de and browserdoctor.de. And that's another way of really trying to cherry pick and focus your money and your spend on ad groups that are working for you and placements that are working for you. And so that's a pretty good way of doing it. And I know if you're a larger corporation, that's not going to be the way you're going to do it in most cases. But for smaller businesses where you have a little bit more time and you don't have necessarily super large amounts of volume, this is definitely what I would do, is I try to cherry pick as many targets as you can and just focus in on those. One of the last things I want to show for optimization is going to be the details. So I can go here and see details and see all. And in here, it'll take a minute usually to come down. Then I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the status. So if I look right here, chips.de downloads / whatever this is, right? AW cleaner, then some number, right? Well, if I look here, this has cost me $12.57. And that's a fantastic price, right? Especially if I'm making pretty good money off of it and there seems to be some good volume there. This right here, browserdoctor.de, well, look at that right there. That definitely is related. So it's saying remove awesome HP, which is a browser hijack. So this particular page is making me a lot of money. Well, that's because my ad copy says, hey, remove awesome HP. So this is a fantastic target. It's high volume, high conversions. I'm definitely making money. It has click to conversion rates pretty high. This particular target, I can go ahead and I can do a new ad group and not do any keywords, not do anything at all except for put this one URL, this long URL in there, and that way I'm only showing on this one URL, which is very powerful, and it's something that most people don't realize that you can do. So I can take my most profitable URLs and actually create a placements campaign and just have these exact long URLs in here. Now there are a few stipulations, and I'll cover those in just a second. You can also in here go in and let's say that this Browser Doctor AdWord Cleaner wasn't profitable, but this one is. What I can do is I can actually select a URL. Now I want it because this is obviously profitable, but let's say I spent $50 on this one URL, and let's pretend that all these URLs are from browserdoctor.de here, and let's pretend all these were the same domain. Now is what I can do is I can actually exclude out select pages. So I can highlight a page that I don't want, and I can go ahead and hit exclude placements. And what this is going to do is it's not going to exclude Browser Doctor and all these other pages. It's just going to exclude this one page, which can be pretty powerful. This can work great, especially on really big websites with set categories. It can be a good way of going about doing things, especially if that one page is highly irrelevant, but all the other pages are very relevant to what you're targeting. Now, AdWords doesn't let you get too crazy on this method, and this will work well for some people in some industries. In other industries, this is a horrible way of targeting just because of the time it can take to go in and do things. So it really depends upon your industry, it depends upon the time of the day that you have, how much volume you have, whether you actually want to go in and get really granular like this. It's worth mentioning that you can exclude and include up to 2 levels deep. So I have the domain name here, and then I have level 1 because this is a category in that page. So there's a forward slash and a forward slash. Then I have a level 2. So this is 2 levels deep right here. And what I can do is I can include this, and I can also exclude this. So excluding would be over here. If I found it, I can select it and hit exclude. Otherwise, if I can also include this exact URL in an ad group as a placement. What I cannot do is if it's more than 2 levels. So we have domain.com level 1. So it's in this category group. Here's level 2 and level 3. I wouldn't be able to do that because it's more than 2 levels deep inside there. So I wouldn't be able to exclude this page, and I also wouldn't be able to target this page either. And the same would go for if there was a subdomain. So it might be health.about.com / level 1, level 2. I wouldn't be able to target this because this isn't actually level 1. This is now level 3 because there's a subdomain on there. And this is something a little bit more in depth, but if you ever go in and you try to exclude multiple things out here and it says error, we can't do that. The reason why is probably because it's more than 2 levels deep. And that's the reason why you can't exclude it. And it also could easily be a reason why, even if it allows you to include it, why there is no traffic on it. It's because, hey, you're bidding way too low, or it might be because it's just too many levels deep. Now, the only other thing I really want to talk about when it comes to a display optimization, there's a few other things actually, I lied. So I'm going to go under settings here, I'm going to go under devices, and if we look at devices, we're going to see that I am 100% still am not allowing any mobile traffic here, right? So I went ahead and I decreased the bid amount by 100% to not allow mobile traffic. Now with this, the reason why is because this is PC software. It's not going to work on a mobile phone, so I'm just not going to have conversions. Now, something I would recommend you do is pay attention to this. Now, when we set up our campaign originally, how I showed you to set it up is to exclude the mobile traffic. But what you are going to want to do here is test it out. So if you start getting a campaign that's working for you and you're profitable and you're making a little bit of money, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and change the bid adjustment here. And so you might decrease it by 50%. And mobile traffic can be significantly cheaper than computer and tablet traffic. And it's also important to think about your industry. So I used the example in a previous video, if I was a locksmith. If I was a locksmith, I definitely want mobile phones there. If I'm in a service-based industry, if I'm in a dental industry, I probably will allow mobile traffic coming in, and I might bid adjust down to 50% or something along those lines just to test the market out. But for a lot of e-commerce stores, you might find that, hey, it's just not worth having, especially initially off the bat. But once you get something working, I do highly recommend that you turn it on. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is optimization. I covered this a little bit, but just with text ads. But if these were image ads, I highly recommend that you have all the image ads allowable. So if the image ads, they allow multiple image ad sizes, it's in the written guide, the 336 by 250, 250 by 250, 300 by 250, 728 by 90, 468 by 60. And I highly recommend that you have all those in here because you never know which ad and which ad size might not have a lot of competition on. And if there's not a lot of competition on that particular ad size or that ad slot, especially on a high volume page, that can bring in significant amount of leads and profits for you. So it's really important to have all those ad sizes in there, but then look at that data too, because you'll find, and it seems to be the case oftentimes, I might have like a 336 by 300 banner going. I might have spent, $50, $60, $70 on it with no conversions. But then the 300 by 250 banner, I might have spent $30 on it and had 5 conversions. Well, where do you want to put your money? Do you want to put your money on an ad that isn't quite working for you yet? It hasn't proven itself? No, you can go ahead and pause it out, and don't remove it, just hit pause. Keep the other one running. In that manner, you're giving yourself the best chance for success. Now, in my next video, I'm going to cover the columns here and what type of columns you need, as well as I'm going to go ahead and cover the relative click-through rate as well, because that relates highly to your hidden quality score, as it's referred to on GDN. In another video later on, I'm actually going to cover another optimization strategy, and I'm going to talk more about the display optimization versus campaign optimization. And there's some pretty big differences between the two and how both of them work, and I'll do my best to kind of describe the differences between those two options for you and why you should definitely be looking at them to help auto optimize your campaign and find new customers.